You know, people love to try and flex on me with this question as a married 4B adjacent content creator, aka somebody who talks a lot of shit about men on the internet. People love to ask me this question. Well, why are you married then? I'll never get tired of answering it. This is why I make the kind of content that I do. So listen up really carefully. It's gonna seem obvious. I'm married because it benefits me. It benefits me. There's something in it for me. Another reason I'm married is because I know what a good man should look and feel and act like. Because I had a really good example of this in my dad. Men who don't treat me right or men who consider themselves a prize are automatically filtered out because they give me the ick. My dad used to bring a lot to the table, to our family. He was not only a financial provider, he was also very present in our home, in my life. He never treated me differently as a girl, never trivialized my feelings, problems, issues, things like that. I'm not used to men doing that. I can genuinely tell you guys, I have been in a happy, productive, loving marriage for 13 years now. And no, we have not had any rough patches. No, there's no infidelity in our past. No point at which we were like, oh, we're not gonna make it. My marriage has not been hard. We've not had to rebuild our trust from scratch. I wouldn't do any of those things. I would just leave. So that's why I'm married. Because my husband's not a useless piece of shit who thinks that he's the prize and thinks that I am in every way lesser and dumber and smaller than him. In fact, he thinks quite the opposite. Like, I've always had pretty high self-esteem, but I can tell you that since being married to my husband, my self-esteem is like through the roof, right? The reason I'm doing this is because he hyped me up every single day when I had 0 followers. He hyped me up when this was a fashion page. He hypes me up even more now that this is a page for women. I'm married to him because he's my biggest cheerleader. I am the recipient of so much love and support and affection in my marriage. This is why I can speak to it, right? This is why I can tell y'all who not to marry, because honestly, my husband loving me like this should be the minimum. Like, it should be the entry, the price of entry into a woman's life. Oh, and when I describe the way that he loves and supports and prioritizes me, I understand that it's very hard to believe because most people have rightfully come to see marriage as a trap for women. Trust me that I would not be sitting here talking all this shit about men while being myself miserable in my marriage. If there's ever a day in my marriage that I'm even close to that, that's when I would leave, because it's exactly what I don't want people to do. I do not want people to stay in their miserable, sad, debilitating marriages. I'm married because my marriage is not like most marriages. We don't think that marriage is hard because we don't think that supporting or loving each other is hard or something we have to force ourselves to do. I'm with a man who, instead of externalizing his problems onto me or our marriage, he understands that what it really takes is inner work. The hardest parts of marriage are the parts where you have to do inner work. Therefore, it's not about the marriage at all. Marriage should never be hard. Sometimes doing your own inner work is hard, but marriage should never be hard. If marriage is hard, that means you are projecting things onto it that don't belong. The state of your marriage only speaks to where you two are at as individuals. And if the two of you are always growing and learning and you sort of stay at the top of your growth potential all the time, then your marriage is not going to be hard. Because everything that makes a marriage hard is what people bring into it, is their baggage, is their preconceived notions, their preconceived ideas. What a lot of men bring into marriage is that they are the prize, that they are to be served, that they are to be listened to, they are to be respected, they are to be the main character, they are to decide what happens, they always have the option of leaving, they always have, or not participating in their responsibilities, checking out entirely. That's the kind of baggage that men bring into marriage. And that's the kind of shit that I would not be willing to put up with. And that's not to say that my husband is like so purely an exception that he came into the marriage with none of these preconceived notions. But what it is to say is that as soon as those preconceived notions like popped up on either side, instead of doubling down on that preconceived notion, we would do the inner work to make things fair and equitable in our marriage, because neither of us wants to treat the other person like shit for our own betterment or for our own benefit. To be clear, I as a woman do not view marriage as a prize to me. I understand that it is a risk that I'm taking and I invest in that accordingly. And so does my husband. I've talked about this before, but we treat our finances in a way that reflects that. We treat our responsibilities in a marriage in a way that reflects that. That it's a risk for me and most likely it's a benefit to him. And what also we try to do is to eliminate that. We try to eliminate the risk towards me, and at the same time we try to eliminate the unfair benefit that a marriage would present to him as a man. Because that's not fair. Just because our world works that way, it doesn't mean it has to be that way. Right? For example, there's never been any pressure for me to have kids unless I fully want to. It would have to be 100% my choice without any convincing from him. And the reason for that is because he puts himself in my shoes. And he has told me before, I would never do that. Like me, if I were a woman, I would never do that for a man. I would only do it if I wanted to do it because of the risks involved, because it is such a dangerous, complicated experience. I would never do it if I were in your shoes. And so I would never, ever, ever expect you to do it for me unless it was something that you personally wanted 100%. He doesn't expect me to take on risk for him. The fact that, yes, because he's a man, he has consistently been able to earn more than me. But at the same time, he does not expect me to treat his job as though it is a priority. Even though he is technically the breadwinner, he has gone out of his way to make sure he treats my job as if we are making the same amount of money. I don't have to do more chores than him because I earn less, because it has nothing to do with my value or worth as a human being, right? So yeah, I just think it's funny when people like assume that I'm married like everybody else is married. No, the reason I talk so much shit about men is because I know what it's like to be treated well in a marriage. I know what it's like for marriage to actually benefit me as a person. I'm not in the kind of marriage where I have to sacrifice everything and then some and erase myself, dim my own light, and make myself smaller. Clearly, I don't do that. I don't exist to serve my husband. I don't exist to bring his children into the world. I don't exist for any of that. I'm married because it's of benefit to me, because life should be easier with two people and not harder. You know, because as a woman, life should be easier when you bring another person into it. It shouldn't get more difficult. And I understand that, you know, because that's how my dad was, right? Things got easier for my mom and I when my dad came into our life. Not just because it was an extra paycheck, but because he literally contributed in every way to the household. And so that's the example I have in my mind, and anything less than that just doesn't mean shit to me. And I wouldn't accept it. I hope this helps. Stay safe out there, y'all. Godspeed. I love you so much.